this topic as we start this topic on the new year. Viewers, today's topic is beyond awareness, mental health, and well-being. This topic will help discussions, research, or advocacy efforts aimed at improving mental health and well-being within the deaf community. And to discuss it, I've got special guests with me who are going to make this show very interesting. And I wouldn't go much in detail to introduce the guests, but I would like to introduce themselves first. From my far left there, you can start.
Right. So my name is Samuel Sikeo. I'm a neuro-linguistic programming practitioner. I enjoy everything to do with the mind and the brain. That's where I come in mental health.
That's so great. And our next guest is someone who is familiar to our screens because he's been our kid and our best presenter on the show, none other than Brian Kachiza. Would you like to give us some welcoming remarks, Brian?
Thank you very much for welcoming me to this program. My name is Brian Kachi, and it's very nice to be here.
Thank you so much, Brian. And viewers, as we've talked of this topic, it's about mental health and well-being. So therefore, this discussion will address the necessity access to therapy and peer support within the deaf community with a focus on improving the self-esteem and mental well-being of those who have acquired hearing loss at some other, let's say, later age, or those who are born with that type of disabilities. Because we know that deafness, it's something that can affect anyone at any time. Now, how can you cope with that situation if that was to happen to you? Are you going to accept it, or you still be in denial of having the hearing loss? Viewers, encourage you all to bring in your comments and suggestions as we continue with this topic. And to start the first question, we'll focus it on Coach Sam. I'll call you Coach Sam on this.
Okay.
So, yeah, you are a member of the community where we've seen that some people, they become deaf, or they are becoming deaf at some later age. Stage. Yeah, with your expertise, what are some of the mental challenges that those people face?
Okay, so to begin with, really, mental health is about the health of the mind and the brain. And this affects every human being. All the senses of a human being are very necessary. You need to have all the senses, hearing, sight, feeling, taste, to just compound everything so that we have an all-rounded sense of presence and sense of awareness, sense of community and well-being in general. So when it comes to the sense of hearing, it is a very crucial part of every human being. Every human being needs to be able to hear well, or be able to get information in them, and be able to also to express the same. And so it brings us to a place where somebody maybe who maybe they live part of their life with hearing and both hearing and speech, then they lose their hearing. So the first thing is that what will happen is that the person will go through grief. Grief is the process of dealing with loss. Yeah. That's grief. So what happens immediately when has lost anything, but especially maybe in this case, particularly their ability to be able to hear well, what will happen is that they'll go through what is called an ambiguous loss.
Okay.
Ambiguous process. So it's an ambiguous loss because they know they've lost their hearing, but the process in the mental faculties does not recognize that on its own. It becomes ambiguous because it's not just that they can't hear, they also have lost other things to go with the hearing as a package of their total well-being, or the total package of a person as they present to the rest of community. So one of the things that will happen is, firstly, they'll get some kind of reactions from people who probably would not have known that they have lost their hearing. and they will approach them expecting them to hear, and they're not hearing. It's a frustration, and that frustration is part of this ambiguous loss, which represents in their mental well-being as something that is very complex and very difficult to deal with. So now, when that happens, they would need now probably to go before a therapist, for instance, as an example. So they reach, when they get to the therapist, the first thing that will happen, unless the therapist really knows how to communicate in sign language and actually understands the deaf culture, so to speak, because it's very specific. Yeah. They behave in a very specific way, and that's not their fault. It's because they have to make do with how they are now experiencing the world. So you find that, first of all, therapy in itself is actually generally called talk therapy. So it's about talking and hearing. So the moment you say therapy to somebody who is coming to see a therapist who is deaf, that presents the first problem. Because the element of therapy works with talk. And talk means talking and hearing. So it means now that changes the whole conversation from just the loss of hearing to actually a lot more, which is now what we refer to as an ambiguous loss, which is a very specialized space where somebody needs to really get into the actual ambiguous and dig out exactly what is this person has lost. Apart from just their hearing, they may have lost friends. They will have lost ability to do a lot of other things in conjunction with other faculties, like the sense of taste. Yeah. In a sense, the sense of hearing affects every other sense. Yeah. So it means their ability to sight also is affected. I'll give an example. If you're about to cross the road, you may not see everything, but you'll be able to hear. Yeah. And because you are hearing, you will not walk on the road until you see what are you hearing. Yeah. But if you don't have a sense of hearing, a driver is coming, they think they are driving a truck and they have hooted and heard, but you have not heard because your hearing is affected. Yeah. So they can see you. So all of this is all the whole, if you call it the environment or the environment of this person who, this is new to them. They knew how to do, but now they don't know what to do. It's new to them, and they're dealing with something they need to begin to mentally walk into and allow their mental faculties to begin to deal with that and to begin to find other ways of interpreting what they're going through. So that's one problem. In the mind, there's also what are called neurons. Okay. So neurons are our thought pathways. So these thought pathways, they are rehearsed. The rehearsed means they memorize what to do at every point. So they have a memory or memorized patterns of how to interpret sound. Now they can no longer be able to get the feedback from the ears themselves, the earpiece. So it means in the brain, there is going to be also some kind of difficulty to be able now to begin to change from interpreting sound to interpreting sight a little bit more, because now they can't hear. Yes. So it means they have to learn to read lips more than just looking at a person when they're talking, and many other such things that can bring a little bit of a complication in the process of communication and sensing their well-being in a total sense that is required. So
when the other sense the other sense becomes more
affected.
Active.
Yes, of course. Then that's a process.
Word you mentioned. That process when one is
ambiguous loss.
Ambiguous
loss. Yes.
Viewers, I'm sure you also have that interesting word which has come right now, right away. Ooh. And I told you it's going to be a very interesting and a hot discussion that's what we're going to have. This, if you're doing a research, opportunity for you to do it and to have time to take note of the points. Well, we'll go to Brian. Yeah, Brian, I've known you like for some time, and you've been presenting this show, carrying it, and to say that the inclusivity of the program has been brought. Now, being a member of the deaf community, you would have seen, I'm sure you've seen a lot of deaf people becoming deaf. Yeah. So now, can you tell us some of the challenges, or how can we compare the stigma to deafness as why it can prevent some to seek support.
Thank you very much for the question. And when you talk about deaf community, to find support, many therapists do not know sign language. So deaf people may feel misunderstood or ignored. This lack of support makes them to fear or willing to seek therapy. But if maybe they know therapists, if they know like a little bit a sign language interpretation, meaning, or if they don't know sign language, they don't know basic sign language, meaning maybe they should have a sign language interpreter there and interpret for deaf culture. That's
so interesting, Brian. And we know that sign language is something so important in the community, not just the deaf community, but the community. Every member of the community should have some basic sign language communication. And now we could continue with, but before I continue with you, Mr. Samuel, I forgot to mention some of the key members of the program who are helping on the interpretation. I'm not just alone doing this work. So I have Prince Mwale and Fendi Jerine, who are helping also on the interpretation. I forgot on that, and I thought it's very important we could mention on that. Now we can now continue with Mr. Coach Sam. Yeah, what role does we have cultural therapists? Yes. So what role does it play in mental well-being of the deaf individuals?
Okay. So it's in a sense, it's very important, first of all, for us to realize before we even go further there are many other issues that affect the deaf, especially when they have been in a space where they could hear and they lose their hearing. One of the things that happens, apart from just having an loss, is what is called post-traumatic stress disorder. Yeah. So PTSD happens when this person who was hearing well and now has lost their hearing, and they are now dealing with the actual issues of stigma. They're dealing with the actual issues of the community and people who know them, especially the close people, because there's a misunderstanding. This is why it affects their mental well-being, because now the relationships they had, the conversations they had are completely distorted. And because of this distortion, it becomes very difficult for them to continue feeling a part and parcel of families. You can imagine a child who wants to talk to a dad who can no longer hear. There's a lot of frustration. The child may not understand what's happening with daddy, and so on and so forth. So that can bring post-traumatic stress disorder. But what is important also, it's very clear that while the training is available even for the deaf and those who are good in sign language, they are able to now train as therapists who can specialize in giving therapeutic strategies to those who are deaf. This would go to reduce the stigma, it would go to reduce the fear of misunderstanding, because this other person actually really understands the deaf culture and can give relevant conversation to the entire space to enhance the mental well-being of the deaf as well, as they are a very key part of the entire community, as in any place where you go to, because we need every person. Every person has a right to communicate, they have the right to be heard, they have a right to participate. So being able to think and come up with strategies that can be inclusive, that can actually really help to now take away the element of the burden in the space where maybe say the deaf culture is, the burden will be reduced. And because of that, they'll be able to now participate more effectively.
That's so true. Just to talk about that, we now have technology. So how can technology play in improving the mental health accessibility for persons with disabilities in the community?
So one of the things is that maybe we can use text messages to text each other, to text the therapist, so that there is a little bit more understanding than just to rely on sign language. Then, of course, there is also the use of videos that can be helpful to reduce some of the issues, especially when it comes to just do with generally awareness of what strategies are there to deal with a person who has a hearing impairment or who has had a hearing impairment on the way, because they do still have a lot of what you call brain pathways which still have great conversation in terms of the lost hearing. Give an example. So in our brains, every time we talk, every time we do something, we have a bank, if you like, let's call it a bank in the brain, which stores our conversation. So the brain and the mind work together to create this, which is going to help us to relate with a bigger world. So what it means is that even when somebody has become deaf today, they have not lost that conversation. It still exists in the brain. They still have a great understanding of the world around them. But with time, that bank begins to diminish. And with its diminishing, it then affects the person in a way that they now begin to try and look for other means. The brain automatically begins looking for other means of enhancing what is required to be heard from the rest of the world. So to be specific, also in the recent years, there has been brain-computer interface. That is latest technology that is put also in some of the hearing gadgets to only just interpret what the person hears, but also to connect with the brain so that they can bring out what's in the mind that person is thinking or trying to communicate. So, but those will probably be a little bit expensive for us in this part of the world. But these are things that are being worked on that are going to enhance the interface in terms of connecting the deaf to the rest of the world at the same wavelength.
We look forward to that technology to be available for everyone. And Brian, like Coach Sam has talked of those terminologies and the awareness of what really happens when someone has been affected with a hearing. How do you think this information, is it really that available to the deaf community as at now? Is it that available? You can tell me. We want to know if the information that Coach Sam is giving, if it's really available to the deaf community. Are they really aware of the changes that happens to them once they become deaf? Because some of them, they fail to accept once that happens, they become deaf. And for them not to accept, meaning they don't have much information to it. We want to know, like, what is the percentage, or are people really aware of that issues when it happens?
Thank you so very much for your question. When you become deaf, you born like you can, but immediately when you become deaf, many hearing people, they are scared maybe to do different things because they are scared they can become deaf. But Mr. Samuel also talked about the technology. Technology can also improve the access for the deaf community, or also for communication, or when it maybe during the videos, calls or sign language fluent therapist. Or using messages or WhatsApp or Facebook, technology can also help in so many different ways, or so many deaf people. Yeah, with
So
communication.
on that one, Brian, like there are terms that he uses of, like, let's say, ambiguous, you know, people accepting the hearing loss. If this sense has been lost, the other sense is high. And also, you know, the technology of where they're trying to put in the gadget, someone becomes deaf, they're able to read the mind. Are deaf people aware about this? Are they aware?
Okay, sometimes others are aware, but others, other deaf people, it's hard, even just to read, it's hard.
Yeah, that's so great.
Yeah, so, yeah, that's how it is.
So it's 50-50 at the moment, as it is. So other deaf people they're aware about it, and some. Yeah, but the percentage of it is something that is low on that. So now, to on what you have said, what are some challenges or barriers that persons with disability, deaf, encounter when they are trying to seek medical care services, especially on mental health?
Thank you very much for your question. And I'll talk about the challenges or the barriers, how we face, maybe when, example, when you're sick, then you go to the hospital there, you find there's no sign language interpreter, or maybe you find the doctors, they don't know sign language. So us as a deaf people, it's hard for us just to hear or to feel the information. So the main challenge is communication. So when you get sick, when you are sick, we go to the hospital, you see the doctors, they don't know sign language. So the communication is very bad, or it's very hard for the deaf people. Even in churches or in hospitals, they also need to consider or also engage sign language interpreters, so the communication should be easy. Even the doctors, they can be simple, yeah.
Thank you so much, Brian, for that. And please, you are welcome and free to contact us on the number 0974 758855. 0974 758855 is the number you can use to call us or text us for contribution or the question that you'd want. And now, Coach Sam, Brian had talked of sign language, which you had touched also at some point in your response. So what role does sign language play during mental health therapy session to deaf people?
Okay, so really just plays a role of understanding. And I think one of the things that is very, very crucial for every human being is to be understood. And being understood has a lot to do with, first of all, your hearing, your ability to hear, or your ability to take in information. So sometimes, even when using certain words, like, say, for instance, hearing, it might be exclusive in a sense, because now some people who are deaf, they can't hear, but they also need to get the information in. So it's just a fundamental right, and it should be given to everyone, so that we have a community which is healthy. A community which excludes others is unhealthy, because it means others get the same treatment as everyone else, and it's very unfair. So it's very important for us to be in a place where we can actually even sort of influence some laws to try and bring this equality that is very necessary for every human being. So it's not just about deaf people, it's about every other difficulty that people have, so that at the end of the day, it shouldn't be a thing. If you are deaf and poor, then you are worse off. Because if you are deaf and rich, maybe you can buy some of these gadgets. Maybe you can go to hospitals which are a bit more versatile in terms of bringing other experts to enhance the health services. So it becomes very, very important. For instance, I think just going to our major hospitals, our government hospitals, there may not be room to really give the deaf some space, especially if they are affected with all other general health conditions, such as maybe eyesight or maybe somebody's coughing. Just that, as an example, can be a big barrier. So
okay, so maybe before we continue, we have a caller, and we'd like to pick up the call. Hello. Hello. Welcome to Wapadela show. Hello. Can you hear? Are you able to hear me? Okay, yeah, Hope calling from on Copperbelt TS, please.
So I've got a question for Coach.
Okay, Coach. Okay.
So I've got two questions. My first question is how do communication barriers affect access to mental health and services?
Okay.
Okay. So my second question is are deaf aware therapists and sign language accessible services important?
Okay. Okay. I'm sure you've gotten the two questions, right?
So I'll be expecting.
Okay. Thank you so much, Hope. Thank you so much, Hope, for your contribution and the question on the show. So I'm sure you keep watch as the coach is responding to your questions. So, coach, we have those questions.
Okay,
Yeah.
so if I was able to hear her, the questions actually are kind of like the same question.
Okay, sure.
So it's really the role of therapists who are able to speak, who was able to communicate in sign language. Now, you see, I think in every area where you go, there are specializations and there are structures. In terms of sign language, I'm not an expert in that. I'm a neuro-linguistic programming practitioner. Yeah. So my practice has a lot to do with just understanding how the mind and the brain responds to changes. Yeah. That's my specialism. So it's responding to changes. So if we restrict it to that, what it means is that if somebody is now having to move from speaking normally to get into sign language, there is a genesis that's going to happen in the brain, because the brain has to now learn to use hands as a form of communication. More, of course, body language is part of communication, but now it will be a lot more of the hands more than the hearing. Yeah. So what it means is that the brain and the mind will begin to translate from looking or hearing and expecting sound to now not expecting sound, but expecting to actually see and read lips. So there is a genesis that happens in the mind and the brain, because the mind, the definition of the mind is the brain in action. Yes. So it means because the mind and the brain are two different entities, and that's another conversation that people don't understand. Yeah. The brain is the structure in the skull, in the head. And in the brain, that's where a lot of communication is interpreted and is molded. So as you think about what to say, your brain interprets it, it compares with the mind to come up with what to say next. So that genesis happens in such a way that a person who was now used to hearing and using their ears and to interpret and to talk, they are no longer doing that. They're now using the eyes more. So it means the way the eyes will work and the way the hearing will work, because somehow there still remains to be a representation in the brain of hearing, even if the ear does not get sound. For some, they remain to hear a little bit less. Others become heightened to sensing vibration. So our chests read vibration. But because I have hearing, I don't depend on my chest to hear. I depend on my ears. But the moment my ears are affected, my sensory pathways in the brain, they move to sensing more of what I hear from the chest, so that I now sense sound from my chest and even my feet, the way we touch to the ground. So all of those are points that can help us to understand what really is happening in the mind or in mental health, as far as trying to learn our environment. Because every day we are learning our environment. How we learn our environment is by hearing, seeing, smelling, and all of those things that happen, feeling. So when one of the senses is affected, it means there will be a migration from a particular sense, so that we're able to hear. Let me give a different example so that we can tell the difference. So let's say I have involved in accident and my hand is amputated. In my brain, the hand will still exist, but it won't be there. So while it exists in the brain now begin to interpret the strength that works in this hand to now bring it to this hand, so that this hand will become stronger, more useful, more balancing than this hand, because this hand is no longer there now. So all of these transactions happen in the neural pathways that affect the way my mind works and the way I read my world, because we're reading the world every day.
Much for that question. And I heard the caller talked of why the therapy is very important, also if we include sign language to it. And I'm sure that you had been discussed on.
Yes, which we covered earlier.
Okay. Thank you so much, and we hope in Kitwe there you've heard, as the coach had explained the question, they are giving the answers to your question, and we look forward for more questions and more suggestions from you all. Thank you so much. And I would like to continue with Brian. Yeah, we have those individuals in the community who have deaf. How would you encourage them to go and seek the mental health services?
Thank you very much. And me, myself, I'm deaf. And I'm encouraging also deaf people also to focus on, they should do pursuit of happiness. They have to focus, even those deaf people that are in colleges, also that they are working, or in people, they can also work together. They can also pursuit of happiness. So I'm encouraging that they have to pursuit of happiness. They need to chase real things. They can become everything they want. They can also become nurses. They can also do what hearing people can do.
Wow, thank you so much, Brian, for that. And if I got you well, Brian is encouraging you all who've before this condition or this disability to accept it, and that you can also do it better than people without deafness. So it's something so good, and as long as one accepts it. Now, on that, Brian, how do you think the deaf cultural identity help a lot to accept their disability as deaf? Okay, so we want to talk about those people, for, you know, like a cultural identity as deaf, where they accept that, okay, I'm deaf. How do you think that can help them to to be identified and also to be saved from mental health issues.
Okay, so when you talk about deafness, you need also to accept it, because it's God who allowed it to be. Example, me, I'm a deaf me, and my profession is I'm a teacher. I'm also encouraging deaf people that they can do anything what they want.
Thank you so much, Brian, on that one, and we really appreciate for your wonderful response to that. So as long as one accepts this disability, they can do anything. And Brian is one of the best examples we can use, being deaf and has been the host and guest host and the presenter of this show. And not only that, on the other side, he's also a teacher by profession and is encouraging others to do the same. Viewers, this has been so interesting and so nice as we've heard more fire from the discussion that we had with our guests. For now, we'll go for a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. And the viewers, as Timvele and Mount Purpose Zambia teams, been so interested in focusing on the matters of inclusivity. And that's why this Wapadela is one of the projects that we are doing and running to make sure that the inclusivity has been brought to light. And we would also encourage everyone, media houses or other businesses, to come in and support the program, as we want this to grow and to reach to everyone. Thank you so much. And I would like to continue now with our discussion. So as usual, we'll start with your coach again.
That's all right.
Yeah, so Coach, right. Coach Sam, you know, there are some people, they isolate themselves when that happens.
Right.
And we know that once someone has been isolated, it's affects them mentally. So now I would like to know, what are the impacts of social isolation on the mental health of deaf individuals who have lost their hearing?
Okay, okay. So first of all, Brian, about something that's very important, pursuing happiness. Pursuing happiness is also another very, very important right for every human being. Okay. And that touches on what is called motivation. It's very, very important for everyone, including the deaf, to seek methods and means of getting motivation. One other thing that helps with motivation is participation, especially in activities like sport. Imagine if you have a champion who is deaf and is a good footballer, you may need necessarily to hear everything in the pitch. There's a lot that you can do by just looking and observing. And so it's very important for us to be deliberate in that area, to support sports people and support the deaf to participate fully in sport. Now, when it comes to the other matter that you mentioned in terms of what was the word there? I didn't not to lose my thought.
Isolation.
Isolation.
Yes.
Okay. So isolation is really a part of the grief process. Okay. So when you lose your hearing, or when you begin to sense a loss, because it's one thing to have a loss, it's another thing to sense it. There are people who may have been born deaf and they take it as normal. And at a given point in child development, then they realize, no, something is not okay with me. Not that they are abnormal, but they will begin to feel the difference. When they begin to feel that difference, they begin to process what's called grief. And grief is just really a roadmap to recovering from pain and loss. So what normally happens is that one of the first stages that you deal with in my reorganized process is shock. Shock is one of those things that will happen to you, especially if you lose your hearing later in life. You are shocked. And when that shock happens to you, into a space where you get into denial, which you also mentioned at a given point, Blessing, that do they accept that has to do with denial. So it means that sometimes when people lose their hearing per se, they may be in denial, meaning they may not understand or they may not accept, if you like, that they have lost this hearing. And because of that, they may begin to isolate. And isolation will not help to rebuild the confidence they need to face their world, or to find themselves in the space which accepts and loves them. So when now a person sort of isolates themselves, they actually begin to injure themselves. One, because they don't sense happiness when you are alone. When you are in isolation, you don't sense a happiness. Secondly, is you begin to feel okay with injury, because that's injury. When you normalize injury, it's really a big problem mentally, because then your mental health begins to get affected. You can actually lose your mind, so to speak, because we were not created to be lonely. We were created to interact with other people, which is why we are given the 5 senses to sense everything. So it comes back that we must use the senses, even if maybe you just balance things out. Maybe if you lost your sense of sight, for instance, you could still use your ears more to see, to sense your world. Just like somebody who is deaf can use their eyes more to sense their world, because what is required is to bring what is out there into the inside, so that we can create how we want to project ourselves, because life is about projection. You need to project yourself. You need to go there with this is who I am. You need to show your identity, which is a very important thing. So, and I agree to say that sometimes there's need to create a level of awareness, or a level of family amongst the deaf people. It could be a color they could choose. Maybe let's say a color, maybe orange. I'm seeing orange around. So psychologically that happens. So if they could choose orange as an example, to communicate that I'm deaf, for instance, to just be as part and parcel of community, so that people need to have a sense of accommodating the deaf in a sense. Because if they completely don't see any sign, they may not have any understanding of what could be affecting this person. I think we've seen different campaigns, say for cancer, they use some flower or something, they use some kind of a ribbon, all of those things. to represent that. All of that says, I'm with you.
Yes.
I don't have cancer, but I'm with you. And that is a sense of family. So if we chose an orange ribbon, for instance, for the deaf, I could wear the ribbon to say, I am with the deaf. So if a deaf person sees me, they might feel I'm welcoming and they might come closer. And that way, we can then create this bond of love and sense of happiness for everyone.
That's so interesting, Coach. Yeah, because as I know, there is disability identity card. And I think also for having that ribbon, it can play a good. Anyway, we'll leave that for another discussion. Yeah. So thank you so much. And Brian, what do you think can be good to programs to make awareness on mental health issues? What are some programs that do you think we can do?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Also, thank you so much for bringing this very vital topic. So it is very important for the mental health programs to be accepted in various aspects. For example, if someone refuses to actually access mental health issues, they might develop mental health problems. So as a community, we can raise awareness programs that also include young people, like children, also to show inclusiveness, and also including sign language interpreters. You are doing advocacy when proclaiming mental health issues. So, and we can also include the experts who are really good in those fields, so they can help when it comes to sensitization.
Wow, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Brian. And viewers, in our language we say, ne unamoni chububu nakuita monjila. Luka kune kuna kuinzanjita. Yeah, so that's Londa. Yeah, so once you just see that answer crossing the road, no, there is battle or war coming. But this is the best battle or war, because we are talking about the war that is going to fight for discrimination and bring in mental health accessibility for everyone. It's so interesting, viewers. And we'll go back to Coach. Yeah, Coach, how can community organization play a role in providing mental health resources and peer support specifically for the deaf programs?
Okay. I think one of the ways that we have not taken advantage of is group therapy. So
That's
group therapy is very important, especially for the deaf, because they will have support for one another. They can all speak, sign language fluently.
Yeah.
So they just have perhaps one, psychotherapist who can now lead conversation or give them conversation starters so that they can begin to conversate amongst themselves and begin to suggest strategies amongst themselves, because they best know what difficulties they face integrating in community, because integration is very important.
Yes.
And that way, it can create a sense of family. Again, sense of family is very, very important amongst all peoples, especially when it comes to sense of feeling belonging to a larger society.
Yeah.
So that group therapy can really help to enhance the way we can deliver mental health, because that way we are broader.
That's so great. And just on that one, in what ways can storytelling and shared experiences within the deaf community boost mental health?
I've written about the power of storytelling in different books, but my latest book talks about brilliance, the brilliance and intelligence combined. So what I talk about in there is that thinking is a very big part of how we do life. And even for the deaf, if the focus is much more on thinking, because it's not what has happened to you that affects you, it's how you think about what has happened to you. And that's where conversation comes in, because a lot of the deaf may end up feeling sorry for themselves, and self-pity does not help. It leads to negative aspects of mental health, because you begin to blame others for the problem you're having, and instead of focusing on solutions, you focus on what you're not being given, what you're not being provided for, how you're being discriminated against. And if the mind is focusing on thinking about discrimination, clearly you will not develop, because the end of your mind is going to be working on something that has no answer. But if you're thinking of saying, how can I improve myself? How can I live a better life, even if I have this issue that I'm dealing with? This, I like to actually call these predicaments rather than problems. You say problem again, it doesn't sound very okay in the mind, because the problem is not wanted. But if it's a predicament, it challenges your thinking. If my predicament is to speak fluently to Brian, I'm going to involve my thinking to try and find a way. Then if I think that to Brian is a problem, then I will not talk to him, or I'll find a way of running away from him. But because I'm thinking talking to Brian is a challenge, or is a predicament for me, then my mind is going to look for ways and means to overcome this predicament.
Wow, that's so interesting. And in all of this, what I can just say, I've picked three words out of all this whole discussion, and which is power of mind. I think this it covers the whole topic that we had. And thank you so much. We can be going and thinking about this topic even throughout the whole day. But I think for now, we'd like to appreciate you, Coach and Brian, for bringing some more interesting discussion and also to this discussion. As we are starting with the new year, we know that people should start with a new mindset and on how they should view persons with disabilities, especially the deaf. Also, if we were to be in that situation, how we can accept it. Thank you so much for your time, for coming in, and for making it so interesting.
Thank you. And thank you, Brian. Thank you so much, Brian. Nice meeting you. I hope we can conversate outside the camera.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Sure. Yeah, thank you so much. And viewers would like to appreciate you all for watching this Wapadela show for today on Beyond Advocacy, Mental Health and Well-being. This has been so interesting. We look forward to another time when you too will bring in some more questions and more discussion and suggestions. As we keep on saying, this program is available for everyone. If you have a topic or a concern that you'd want to discuss on this show, bring it on. You can reach us on number 0974 758855. 0974 758855 is the number that you can use to reach us. As for now, this has been Blessing Soka as the presenter of the host for this topic for today, being assisted by Fentino, Jerine, and Prince Mwale as our sign language interpreters. For the whole crew, would like to say bye-bye, see you again next time, and be safe as we still celebrate the festival.